Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, celebrity interviews, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now celebrating 17 years of broadcasting success, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, both for our radio audience in the South, as well as tuning in online around the world, thanks to our friends at iHeartRadio. We're glad you all could be with us as well. We're excited to welcome Mike Cuenca to our program today. Mike is a filmmaker, musician, and an individual who's gearing up for the release of a brand new film called I'll Be Around. We'll talk to Mike not only about the film, but also what it was like for him to marry two of his passions together, that being filmmaking and music, to be able to bring this film to life, what it's been like for him to already see the early response, and of course we'll let you guys know how you can be able to watch it for yourself and stay connected for the updates. Mike, thank you so much for the time today. Really appreciate it.
Hey.
Well, so Mike, one of the things I noticed when I was prepping for this is that, as I said, you yourself being a musician, you, of course, are able to share your love of being able to tell stories through film, but also your love of music. In this particular film, I'll Be Around, what has that been like for you to already see the response to it, Mike?
It's pretty awesome because we, specifically targeted towards musicians and people that can relate to it in that sense, because it does go into the, backstage mechanics a little bit. So to marry the two mediums has been fantastic, and everyone's, we had a premiere in February at the Hollywood Independent, the Real Independent Film Festival, and the reaction was great because everyone was able to relate to it.
So take us back a little bit, Mike, because it's your first time on with us this year. Is storytelling, filmmaking, is that something that you always thought that you wanted to do, or what has it been like for you to be able to take this medium and be able to tell stories this way?
I think it's the best form to manipulate an audience in order to get them to feel a certain thing that you're trying to portray, obviously, through editing, through music, through the choices of acting delivery, all that sort of stuff. So it's almost like being a magician, and that's really appealing to me. And I think obviously storytelling unites us all as human beings, and being able to visually present it and present this culture that certain people aren't able to access. I think it has an appealing aspect to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the cool thing about watching I'll Be Around is, the realism that's around it. I think a lot of times when people think about music, and especially, the lives of musicians, I think we kind of have it in our mind, what to expect from those individuals, what their lives are like. Did you see I'll Be Around as a way of kind of not only, of course, showcasing the real when it comes to musicians and the rock and roll life, but also what it's like for you to really go for your goals and dreams?
Right, because how much you have to actually sacrifice to do that sort of stuff, And so, we do have characters in the flick that are successful musicians. We have people that are striving still. They've been trying to do this for 20 years, but they don't really have another option in life because this is what brings them happiness. And then you also have the people that just don't care. They're just totally fine. And also the other characters, most of these characters are, in their mid to late 30s. So we don't go for the cliche sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing, even though there is some drug use in the flick. But it's more comedic because they've already gone through all of that. So now they're just on the other side, and they feel like they're, in a sense, walking in a ghost town and trying to determine what they're going to do for the rest of their lives.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because one thing I will say that I thought about with this, and I think, when audiences are able to see it, as I mentioned, coming out on September the 23rd, I think they'll feel the same way, Mike, and that is that it really goes to what really matters, right? At the end of the day, even though the perks, so to speak, can sometimes be enticing, to any profession, I think, but especially with music, you think about the idea of having fans and having a certain life. But do you think that is kind of the big thing about I'll Be Around? It really does go back to the music being the star.
At the end of the day, that's what lured you to start practicing all that stuff too. You kind of, in a sense, it's like how the reason why we made this movie is for people that feel a little bit like they're drifting through life, and they kind of forgot what it's like to get excited about things, and now they find something that they can relate to, which is what music was like to me. I felt like I didn't really have anything to latch onto as a kid, and then music came into my life, and it just entirely, changed the way I dress and changed my my beliefs, my philosophy on life. Everything introduced me to this whole world,
Right.
So I think that's that's something that occasionally people need to get reminded of, because we tend to forget what it's like to be young and have something fresh and new being thrown into your life,
Right. And I think, again, that's one of the cool things about being able to tell stories like this, right? I mean, it's entertaining, but also I think for anyone out there, especially in the creative community, really does kind of remind them of what matters, and that is the art itself. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to be able to welcome the filmmaker and musician behind the new film, I'll Be Around, Mike Cuenca, to our program. We're talking to Mike not only about the film, but also what it's been like for him to be able to see the early response. One of the big ways, of course, that all of us now are finding out about projects like this, Mike, is through social media. Did you know even before the pandemic? I know you mentioned about, having the premiere in February. Did you know even then that social media was going to be a big part of how you're going to spread the word?
Well, we did, raise a portion of the financing or funds through a Seed and Spark. So we were already doing like a social media campaign for it.
Okay.
The only thing is we did do that campaign, which was successful, and it was maybe 3 years ago. I think it's when it ended, around this time 3 years ago. So there was a big gap, and people were really excited for the movie, and obviously it took us a while to be able to film it and, pre-production and all that stuff. But, yeah, social media already had been playing a big part in that. And especially now people, they're at home, they're kind of starving for new content. And in that way, I think it's pretty bittersweet, too, because this movie captures, like a full-on 24-hour hangout day. You're able to go see bands. You're able to hang out with friends at bars and, just walk around, talk, and not really do much of anything else but that. And, people are right now feeling a little bit clamped up, and I think it's almost like a nice antidote. There's a bittersweet that's coming out now. People can watch and try to hold on to those days that they missed.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you mentioned, of course, about the timeline of the film. I think that is an interesting thing. I mean, talk to us about that idea. I mean, was that something that you knew you wanted to try to be able to showcase, almost like a day in the life? Or, I mean, how did the idea for that come about?
We were highly inspired by two movies specifically. One is Robert Altman's Nashville, which the early 70s flick. And in that movie, we're following all these musicians, country musicians, over the span of 5 days. And it's really plotless, and also by Slacker, Richard Linklater Slacker, which, was an early 90s staple. And in that movie, it's 24 hours in Texas, in Austin. And, it actually starts with Linklater in the back of a car, and he's talking, and, he gets out of the car, the camera follows him, he runs into another person, the camera follows that person, and so on and so forth throughout the whole day. So we wanted to do a mixture of both movies, have it set over 24 hours, and that is why I believe the first hour of the movie of I'll Be Around has that Slacker feel. You're kind of just drifting and following random characters in these small vignettes. They're all talking about whatever issues they got going on in life, or their romantic philosophies, or their band problems, or whatever. And you're slowly kind of putting the pieces together how everybody's related. And then the second half, you see that we've actually been setting up all these characters this entire time, because through the writing process, we started to fall in love with the characters. And we're like, wouldn't it be cool to bring back that person that, we showed in the first 2-3 scenes over here, and show how they relate to these other characters we presented some other time. So that was the whole idea. And also, to capture what it's like, if you were to come to a brand new town and there's this established music scene, everybody knows each other, they've been going to each other's shows for years, and you're kind of a stranger, and you don't really know, you're kind of swept by you're swept by a wave, and you kind of have to figure out how everyone is related. And I think that's sort of the fun part about the movie. If you just hang out and, over those 24 hours and kind of, find the people that you tune in with the most, and you want to know more about them and that sort of thing. That's the idea of it, at least.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting, and I'm glad that audiences will be able to enjoy it really soon. Again, September the 23rd is a release date on Amazon. And Mike, I really appreciate you stopping by the show. How can our audience stay connected with the updates?
They can visit us at ibafilm.com. I'll be around, IBA. If you go on there, we have all our screening times for virtual festivals. It's going to show all the platforms that the movie's going to be on eventually. There's some behind-the-scenes stuff on there. Some cool set photos, all that jazz. But if they just go on ibafilm.com, they can keep updated and also join the mailing list that we have.
All right. Well, Mike, congratulations to you guys, to the cast and the crew, and definitely looking forward to having you back on the program again.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live. Let's make today amazing. Take care.